She appeared at a millionaire's door, wounded, barefoot, and carrying a past that no one could understand. The millionaire was startled when he saw her. If you like love stories, romance, subscribe to this channel. We post videos like this, every day continuing. Rain fell in silent streamlets on the black marble of the main entrance to Magnolia Manor, a monument to opulence and mystery erected on the outskirts of Aspen, Colorado. The September sky darkened prematurely, tinting the Art Nouveau windows with a deep blue that reminded Nathan Blackwood of the afternoons when his mother used to play Debussy on the piano in the library. His footsteps echoed through the empty corridors as he followed his daily routine of checking every corner of the property before retiring to his office. At 42, Nathan carried the weight of his empire with the same understated elegance he had inherited from his father. His angular face, marked by a well-trimmed beard that was beginning to show the first grey hairs, maintained an expression of permanent restraint. It was as if every muscle in his body had been trained to maintain control, to not reveal the fissures that the tragedies of recent years had left in his soul. Blackwood Vineyards was more than a family business. It was a dynasty built on secrets and blood. Since the mysterious death of his parents in a helicopter accident 20 years ago, Nathan had taken on not only the management of the vineyards that stretched for hundreds of acres, but also the responsibility of keeping up appearances. The disappearance of Rebecca, his fiancée 13 years earlier, had been the final blow to his facade of perfection. That night, something impelled him toward the north wing of the mansion, a section that had remained sealed since Rebecca disappeared without a trace. It was an area he avoided like an open wound, preserved exactly as it was the last time she had been there. The furniture covered with white sheets looked like silent ghosts, mute witnesses to a happiness that dissolved like mist at dawn. The storm was intensifying when Nathan heard a different sound, something between a moan and a whisper, coming. From the other side of the heavy carved oak door, his heart, always so disciplined, raced against his will. With fingers that trembled imperceptibly, he turned the ancient bronze doorknob. What he found on the other side defied any rational explanation. A young woman, no more than 25 years old, lay unconscious on the Persian rug. Her white dress, soaked by the rain, clung to her body like a second skin, revealing curves that seemed sculpted in marble. Her bare feet showed recent abrasions, and her delicate hands were clenched, as if she had fought against something or someone. Nathan approached cautiously, years of distrust making his movements calculated. The young woman's breathing was shallow but regular. Her face, framed by black hair that formed a dark halo on the carpet, had an ethereal, almost supernatural quality in the diffused light that entered through the windows. It was when she opened, her eyes of a deep green that seemed to contain entire universes of secrets, that Nathan felt the first shiver of recognition. Rebecca. The word escaped his lips before he could contain it, but he knew it was impossible. This young woman, despite a disturbing resemblance, was not his missing fiancée. She was someone else, someone who somehow inexplicably had found her way to this place closed for so long. "Lily," she murmured, her voice hoarse and fragile like autumn leaves. "My name is Lily." And then her eyes closed again, leaving Nathan with more questions than answers. With a care that surprised even himself, Nathan took her in his arms. Her body was surprisingly light, as if made of secrets and shadows. As he carried her to the nearest guest room, he couldn't help but notice how she fit perfectly against his chest, as if that place had always been hers. The housekeeper, Mrs. Garcia, an elderly woman who had served the family for decades, was immediately called. Her experienced hands cared for Lily with maternal efficiency, cleaning the wounds, changing the wet clothes for a silk nightgown that had belonged to Nathan's late mother. The whole time he remained in the hallway, his mind a whirlwind of theories and possibilities. How had she gotten there? The north wing had been locked for years, its keys kept in the office safe. The security cameras hadn't recorded any movement in the gardens. It was as if Lily had simply materialized inside the mansion, brought by the storm like a gift, or a curse, from the gods. When Mrs. Garcia finally left the room, Her normally serene face showed signs of concern. "Mr. Nathan, there's something strange about this girl. The injuries, they seem both old and recent at the same time, and she murmurs things in her sleep, things about music and broken mirrors." Nathan nodded gravely. He had already noticed a peculiar atmosphere around Lily, as if she existed simultaneously in different layers of reality. "Keep her comfortable and safe, Garcia. Tomorrow, when she wakes up, we'll have our answers." But as he walked back to his office, Nathan knew he was lying to himself. Something told him that Lily wouldn't bring answers, only more questions, more mysteries, more layers of an enigma that had begun 13 years ago when Rebecca disappeared, leaving only a note with words that still haunted him. Some promises are made to be broken. Others are eternal shackles. In the library, the large wall clock struck midnight when Nathan poured himself a generous dose of whiskey. Through the French windows, he could see the gardens being battered by the storm. Lightning, occasionally, illuminated the statues of angels that guarded the beds of black roses, a rare species that Rebecca had cultivated with such care. It was then that he noticed something that made his blood freeze. On the grand piano, where there had been nothing moments before, rested a single black rose, its petals still wet as if it had just been picked. Beside it, a piece of paper with handwriting he knew as well as his own, Rebecca's handwriting. "You promised that you would not love another." The whiskey in his glass trembled slightly, reflecting the imperceptible tremor of his hands. Outside, the storm roared with renewed force, as if the heavens themselves shared the turbulence that was beginning to form in his heart. Nathan knew with a certainty that went beyond reason that Lily's arrival was no coincidence. It was the beginning of something bigger, darker, and deeper than he could imagine. In her room, separated from him by marble corridors and mystery, Lily slept a restless sleep, her lips murmuring words in a language that seemed too ancient to be recognized. Her fingers, still marked by the struggle that had brought her there, clutched the sheets as if trying to hold on to something solid, something real, in a world that was beginning to unravel like mist at dawn. Morning brought with it a hesitant clarity that infiltrated through the stained glass windows of the mansion, painting the corridors with shades of amber and crimson. Nathan hadn't slept. He had spent the night in his office, surrounded by old photographs and documents he hadn't seen in years. Rebecca's face watched him from dozens of different angles, always with that enigmatic half-smile that seemed to guard secrets too deep to be revealed. Mrs. Garcia knocked on the door shortly after dawn, her normally placid face marked by a poorly disguised disquiet. "The girl is awake, Mr. Nathan. She's different." Different was an inadequate word to describe Lily when Nathan entered the guest room. Sitting on the edge of the bed, dressed in one of his mother's old dresses that Garcia had set aside, she seemed simultaneously out of place and perfectly belonging to that environment. Her green eyes, now alert and penetrating, studied him with an intensity that made his heart skip a beat. "How did you get into the north wing?" Nathan went straight to the point, keeping a safe distance, as if fearing that getting too close might make the whole surreal situation shatter like a dream at dawn. Lily tilted her head slightly, a gesture that was painfully familiar. "Through the winter garden door," she answered naturally, as if that were the most obvious thing in the world. "The one with the stained glass of the phoenix rising from the ashes." Nathan's blood froze. That specific door, with its elaborate Art Nouveau stained glass, was a secret kept only by him and Rebecca. It was hidden by thick vines and didn't appear on any plans of the mansion. It was the place where they used to meet in secret, in the early days of their romance when her father still opposed the relationship. "How do you know about that door?" His voice came out harsher than he intended. Lily frowned, as if trying to grasp a fleeting memory. "I don't know, I just knew it would be there. Just as I know there's a secret passage behind the third bookshelf in the library, and that the safe in the office opens with your grandmother's birth date." Each of her words was like an ice dagger in his chest. That was information that only Rebecca knew. It was impossible for this young woman, who could not be more than 25 years old, to know such intimate details of his life. "Who are you really, Lily?" The question came out as a tense whisper. She rose from the bed with a feline grace that resembled the movement of water. "I am myself. But sometimes, when I sleep, I dream of other lives, other moments. I dream of piano music and the scent of black roses. I dream of a man who loves me and fears me at the same time." Her eyes met his with an almost physical intensity. "I dream of you, Nathan." The sound of his name on her lips provoked a wave of contradictory sensations in his body. It was like hearing a distant echo of Rebecca, but there was something more, something new, disturbing and irresistibly attractive. "You need to leave," he declared, struggling to keep his voice firm. "This place is not safe for you." A sad smile played on her lips. "No place is safe for me, Nathan, not since I escaped from the convent." The mention of the convent made something stir in Nathan's memory. Years ago, after Rebecca's disappearance, he had made generous donations to several religious institutions in the region. One of them was a convent in the mountains that also functioned as a psychiatric treatment center. "What convent?" he asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Holy Cross of Souls, the place where they keep people like me, people who remember too much, who dream too much, who know things they shouldn't know." She approached him, her perfume, a mixture of jasmine and something deeper, older, invading his senses. "The place that your foundation has been funding for 13 years. 13 years, the same time since Rebecca had disappeared." The coincidences were beginning to pile up like pieces of a macabre puzzle that he wasn't sure he wanted to assemble. "Why did you come here?" His voice came out hoarse, betraying an emotion that he desperately tried to contain. "Because you called me," she answered simply. "Every night, for 13 years, you've been in that north wing, reliving memories, feeding ghosts. And now—" She raised her hand, almost touching his face, but stopping millimeters from the skin. "Now it's time to face the truth." The air between them seemed electrified. Nathan could feel every fiber of his being responding to her proximity, even as his mind screamed warnings of danger. There was something about Lily that went beyond the superficial resemblance to Rebecca. It was as if she carried within her fragments of his lost fiancé's soul, mixed with something new, something of her own and equally magnetic. "What truth?" he whispered, unable to move away. "The truth about what happened that night, about the experiments at the convent, about why some people need to forget, and others are condemned to remember." Her green eyes shone with an almost supernatural intensity. "You're not the only one with ghosts, Nathan Blackwood, but perhaps you're the only one who can help me free them." The distant sound of a piano interrupted the moment. The notes of Claire de Lune floated through the corridors of the mansion, coming from the library, where Nathan knew there was no one. It was Rebecca's favorite music, the same she played on the night she disappeared. Lily closed her eyes, her body swaying gently to the rhythm of the melody. "She always misses the same note," she murmured, "the E-flat in measure 23. And, indeed, when that specific moment in the music arrived, the note faltered, exactly as it faltered when Rebecca played. Nathan felt his knees weaken. It was impossible for Lily to know that intimate detail, that small imperfection that had become a trademark of Rebecca's performances. "What are you?" The question came out like a desperate prayer. Lily opened her eyes, and for a moment, just a brief moment, Nathan could swear he saw Rebecca's face superimposed on hers, like a ghostly mask. "I am a question you need to answer, a mystery you need to solve, and perhaps—" She finally let her hand touch his face, her cold fingers tracing a gentle line on his cheek. "Perhaps I am your chance for redemption." The music stopped abruptly, leaving a dense silence charged with possibilities in the air. Outside, the sun was beginning to strengthen, breaking through the remaining clouds from the night's storm. A new day was beginning at Magnolia Manor, a day that promised to bring to light secrets buried long ago in the depths of its stone foundations and mystery. The days that followed the discovery of the diary were a dance between desire and fear, between present and past. Nathan and Lily could no longer deny the magnetic attraction that united them, but each moment of intimacy brought with it new revelations, new mysteries that needed to be unraveled. On a particularly hot afternoon, while they were searching through the office archives for more clues about the convent's experiment, Lily found an old folder with the Holy Cross of Souls letterhead. Inside, medical reports and black and white photographs showed rooms filled with strange equipment, half scientific, half mystical. Project Transmigration, she read aloud, her fingers trembling as she touched the yellow documents. Phase 1. Consciousness separation. Phase 2. Temporal gestation. Phase 3. Her voice faltered. Phase 3. Rebirth. Nathan approached from behind her, his arms encircling her waist in a protective gesture that had become natural in recent days. The heat of his body against her back sent shivers down her spine, a mixture of comfort and desire that she could no longer ignore. Dr. Matthews wrote here that the experiment was an unprecedented success, she continued, leaning back against his chest. But the price was too high. What price? He whispered against her neck, his lips brushing the sensitive skin. Souls cannot be simply transferred or duplicated, she replied, turning in his arms to face him. They need to be divided, like a flame that lights another candle. The original remains, but something of it is passed on. Her green eyes, so identical to Rebecca's, shone with a hypnotic intensity. Nathan couldn't resist the impulse to touch her face, his fingers tracing the delicate curve of her jaw. Is that why you have her memories? Because part of her soul lives in you? Yes, sighed Lily, leaning into his touch. But they're not just memories, Nathan. They're feelings, desires, fears. Every time you touch me, my body recognizes your hands as if they had already caressed me in another life. Every time you kiss me. She moved closer, her lips millimeters from his. It's as if my soul remembers a love that transcends time. The kiss that followed was different from the previous ones, deeper, more desperate. Nathan's hands slid down her back, pressing her against his body with an urgency that made them both moan. Lily responded with equal fervor, her fingers burying themselves in his hair as their tongues danced in a battle for dominance. Documents fell to the floor when he lifted her, sitting her on the ancient mahogany desk. The light dress she wore rode up her thighs, revealing silky skin that seemed to glow in the golden afternoon light that came through the tall windows. "We shouldn't," he began, but his hands were already exploring the exposed skin, provoking tremors of pleasure. "We should," she cut him off, pulling him closer between her legs. "Some things are inevitable, Nathan, like gravity, like destiny." Their mouths met again, and this time there was no hesitation. Her hands worked on the buttons of his shirt, while he explored her neck with kisses that would leave marks. The air around them seemed electrified, charged with decades of repressed desire. Not just theirs, but a love that had crossed time itself to be realized. "You're so beautiful," he murmured against her skin, his hands sliding under her dress, finding lace and warmth. "So perfect." Lily arched her back, a moan escaping her lips when his fingers found her center of pleasure. "Nathan," she sighed, her body trembling with anticipation. "Please." The sound of his name on her lips was like a prayer, a plea he did not want to resist. With a fluid movement, he lifted her from the desk, carrying her to the leather sofa in the corner of the office. Her dress found the floor, on the way, followed by his shirt. When their bodies finally joined, it was as if the universe itself held its breath. Each movement was a discovery, each moan a confession of love that transcended words. Lily moved beneath him like living water, her hips meeting each thrust with a precision that bordered on the supernatural. "Look at me," he asked, holding her, face between his hands as their bodies danced that ancient dance. "I want to see your eyes." Her eyes opened, green as a deep forest, and for a moment, just a brief moment, Nathan saw something else there, a flash of another time, another life. But then Lily moaned his name again, her nails leaving marks on his back, and all that mattered was the present, the heat, the deep connection between them. The climax hit them simultaneously, an explosion of sensations that seemed to last an eternity. When finally their bodies relaxed, intertwined on the old sofa, the silence that enveloped them was almost sacred. "I love you," she whispered against his chest, where his heart still beat erratically. "Not as a memory, not as an echo. I love you as myself, as Lily." Nathan held her tighter in his arms, burying his face in her hair that smelled of jasmine and satisfied desire. "I love you too," he replied, and for the first time in 13 years the words did not carry the weight of guilt. But the moment of peace was brief. A sudden wind blew through the window, scattering the documents across the office floor. Among them, one particular photograph caught the attention of both, an image of the underground laboratory of the convent, where a familiar figure was lying in a kind of glass chamber. Rebecca. And the date on the photo was just a week ago. The mystery, they realized, was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The discovery of the recent photograph of Rebecca changed everything. What was once a search for answers about the past transformed into a race against time in the present. Nathan and Lily knew they needed to act, but each step toward the truth seemed to drag with it new complications, new dangers. The following morning, while mist still covered the gardens of Magnolia Manor like a ghostly mantle, Lily woke up screaming. Her nightmares, before fragmented and confused, now came with a frightening clarity. In her dream, she was in the underground laboratory of the convent, but not as an observer. She was Rebecca, lying in the glass chamber, connected to machines that pulsed with an unnatural blue light. They weren't just experimenting with memory, she told Nathan, her hands trembling as she held a cup of tea that Mrs. Garcia had prepared. They were trying to create a bridge between temporal dimensions. Dr. Matthews, he discovered a way to manipulate the very fabric of time. Nathan, sitting beside her on the unmade bed, put his arm around her shoulders, pulling her closer. The warmth of his body was a familiar comfort now, a safe harbor amid the storm of revelations. "In the dream," she continued, her voice dropping to almost a whisper, "I could feel everything Rebecca felt. The fear, the hope, the determination. She knew she was pregnant with me, but she also knew it wasn't a normal pregnancy. I was being gestated not just in her womb, but in time itself." "How is that possible?" asked Nathan, his fingers tracing soft patterns on her arm. Dr. Matthews called it accelerated temporal gestation, using a combination of advanced technology and something else, something ancient and mystical. They managed to create a field where time flowed differently. 9 months were transformed into a matter of hours, and years were condensed into days. She abruptly stood up, walking to the window. The mist was beginning to dissipate, revealing the contours of the garden where Rebecca's black roses still bloomed, defying nature itself. "But there was a price," she continued, her voice trembling. "For me to be born and grow in the future, Rebecca had to sacrifice herself," completed Nathan, joining her by the window. "That's why she disappeared that night." "Not exactly," replied Lily, turning to face him. "She didn't disappear, Nathan. She was preserved, kept in a state of temporal suspension while I grew, developed, absorbed her memories and experiences. And now," her eyes shone with contained tears, "now she's waking up." The realization hit Nathan like a punch to the stomach. The recent photo, Sister Constance's visits, the inexplicable events in the mansion, everything was beginning to make a terrible sense. "That's why they want you back," he said, his hands finding hers. "You are the key to completing the experiment, to bringing her back." "Yes," whispered Lily, squeezing his fingers tightly, "but not in the way they think. Dr. Matthews believes he can use my connection with Rebecca to restore her completely, to bring her back to the present. But he doesn't understand that this would destroy me, that it would destroy everything I am, everything I've become." Nathan pulled her into his arms, his heart beating furiously against his chest. The idea of losing her, after finally finding her, was unbearable. "I won't let that happen," he promised, his voice hoarse with emotion. "I won't lose you too." Lily raised her face to him, her green eyes shining with a mixture of love and determination. "Then we need to act. We need to go to the convent before it's too late. Rebecca, my mother, she needs to be freed, not resurrected, and I—" She touched his face with trembling fingers. "I need to free myself from these chains of the past, to be able to live my own future. With you." The kiss that followed was different from all the others. It tasted of promise, of revolution, of destiny being rewritten. His hands slid down her back, pressing her closer, as if he could fuse her to his own being to protect her. When they separated, they both knew what needed to be done. Nathan walked to his closet, removing from a hidden safe an old bronze key he had never used. "Rebecca gave me this on the night she disappeared," he explained, extending the key to Lily. "Said that one day I would understand its purpose." Lily took the key, her fingers trembling slightly as she touched the cold metal. The moment she held it, a memory that was not hers exploded in her mind. A secret corridor under the convent, an ancient door marked with esoteric symbols, and beyond it— "I know where we need to go," she said, her voice firm despite the fear that threatened to consume her. "But Nathan, what we find there could change everything. It could change who we are, what we feel for each other." He took her face between his hands, his eyes fixed on hers with an intensity that made her heart skip a beat. "Nothing can change what I feel for you, Lily. Not time, not memory, not even Rebecca herself." Outside, the sun finally defeated the mist, bathing the room in a golden light that seemed an omen. In a few hours, they would be on their way to the Holy Cross of Souls Convent, in search of answers that could either save or destroy them. But at that moment in that room bathed in morning light, they allowed themselves one more moment of love, their bodies uniting in a dance that defied time itself, because they both knew that, regardless of what they found at the convent, this could be their last chance to be together as they were now, two lovers united not only by desire, but by a destiny that transcended generations. The journey to the Holy Cross of Souls Convent was made in a silence charged with tension. Nathan's Range Rover serpentined through the winding mountain roads, while the afternoon began to give way to twilight. Lily kept the ancient bronze key clutched in her hand, its metallic warmth seeming to pulse with an energy of its own. The convent rose like a Gothic fortress against the darkening sky, its grey stone towers penetrating the low clouds like ancient spears. The place seemed to exist in its own dimension, separated from the modern world by something more than mere physical distance. "There's a secondary entrance," murmured Lily. Her memories, or were they Rebecca's, guiding them through the abandoned gardens, through the old chapel. Nathan followed close behind her, his body tense like a violin string about to snap. Every shadow, every noise could mean danger, but there was something else bothering him. A growing sense of familiarity with the place, as if he too had been there before. The chapel was empty when they entered, the air heavy with incense and memories. Candles flickered in ancient candlesticks, creating dancing shadows on the stone walls. Lily moved as if in a trance to the altar, her fingers tracing invisible patterns on the dark wood. "Here," she whispered, pressing a specific point. With a low creak, a panel opened, revealing a staircase that descended into the depths of the earth. The air that rose was cold and carried a metallic odor like blood and ozone. Nathan pulled a flashlight from his pocket, but before he could turn it on, bluish lights began to pulse in the walls of the tunnel, as if responding to their presence. "Artificial bioluminescence," explained Lily, her voice strangely calm. "Part of Dr. Matthews's experiment. He discovered a way to use genetically modified fungi to create lighting that responds to specific electromagnetic fields, the same fields he used to manipulate time." They descended in silence, each step taking them deeper into the heart of that impossible place. The tunnel eventually opened into a laboratory that seemed to have come out of a steampunk nightmare. Ultra-modern equipment mixed with apparatuses that looked like medieval relics. And at the center of it all, the glass chamber. Nathan felt his heart stop when he saw the figure floating in the bluish liquid. Rebecca. Her face was exactly as he remembered, without a single mark of the time that had passed. Tubes and electrodes connected her body to machines that pulsed with a life of their own. Is she alive? The question came out as a hoarse whisper. In a way, replied Lily, approaching the chamber. Her body was preserved in a temporal stasis field. For her, the last 13 years have been just a moment. She raised her hand, touching the glass with trembling fingers. At the same instant, Rebecca's eyes opened. The scream that followed came from neither of them. It was an impossible sound, like time itself being torn. The blue lights pulsed violently, and Lily staggered backward, her body convulsing. "Lily!" Nathan caught her before she fell, but something was wrong. Her body was too hot, vibrating with an energy that made the air around them crackle. "She's trying to—" "Come back," gasped Lily, her eyes alternating between green and an impossible blue. "The connection is too strong." "What a lovely connection," a familiar voice cut through the air. "Exactly as we planned." Dr. Matthews emerged from the shadows, accompanied by Sister Constance and her white-clad guardians. The doctor appeared older than in the photos Nathan had seen, but his eyes shone with a maniacal intensity. 13 years, he continued, moving through the laboratory like a maestro about to conduct his masterpiece. 13 years to create the perfect vessel, to allow the consciousness to develop independently, absorbing its own memories and experiences. And now, he smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Now we can complete the cycle. "What are you talking about?" demanded Nathan, still holding Lily in his arms. "Complete consciousness transfer, of course," replied the doctor with an almost childlike enthusiasm. "Rebecca wasn't just pregnant when she came to us. She was dying, an inoperable brain tumor. But I offered her a chance to live again through her own daughter." Lily moaned in his arms, her body arching as if electrocuted. "No, it's not true." "Oh, but it is," continued Matthews. "The body in the chamber isn't Rebecca. Not really, it's just a vessel, maintaining her vital essence until the appropriate moment. And you, my dear Lily," his eyes shone with an insane fire, "you are the masterpiece, a young, healthy body, prepared from conception to receive your mother's consciousness. A perfect resurrection." "You're insane," growled Nathan, pulling Lily closer to him protectively. "Insane? I've transcended the limits of death itself, and now, with the connection established—" He made a gesture, and the guardians began to move toward them. "We can complete what we started 13 years ago." But before they could reach them, Lily rose, her strength surprising everyone. Her eyes now shone with a supernatural green, and when she spoke, her voice carried echoes of others that were not her own. "You're wrong," she declared, each word charged with power. "Rebecca didn't want this. She wanted me to live, not as her, but as myself, and now—" She raised the bronze key, which began to glow with its own light. "Now it's time for all of us to be free." The chaos that followed was like an explosion of light and sound, as past and present collided in a moment of final truth that would forever change the destiny of all those present. The bronze key in Lily's hands pulsed with a golden light that seemed alive, filling the underground laboratory with dancing shadows. Dr. Matthews stepped back, his previous confidence giving way to an expression of genuine concern. "What are you doing?" he shouted, but his voice was swallowed by the growing hum emanating from the machines around them. "What should have been done 13 years ago?" replied Lily, her voice carrying a power that made even the guardians hesitate. "Rebecca knew this would happen. She left the key not to open a door but to break chains." With a fluid movement, she broke free from Nathan's arms and advanced toward the glass chamber. Each step she took made the laboratory lights flicker, as if electricity itself responded to her presence. "No!" Dr. Matthews made a frantic gesture to his guards. "Stop her. The experiment cannot be interrupted at this stage." But before they could reach her, Nathan stood in their way. Years of fencing and boxing practice in his youth returned instinctively when the first guard attacked him. With a precise movement, he blocked the blow and counterattacked, sending the man to the floor. "Lily!" he shouted, as he dodged a second attacker. "Do what you need to do." She reached the glass chamber, her eyes meeting Rebecca's through the bluish liquid. For a moment, Mother and daughter looked at each other, past and present, origin and consequence, united in a single instant of total understanding. "Forgive me," whispered Lily, placing the key against the glass. The effect was instantaneous. A wave of golden energy exploded from the point of contact, enveloping the chamber in a web of light that seemed alive. The liquid inside began to bubble, and Rebecca's eyes widened in an expression of surprise. "No." Dr. Matthews' cry was almost animal. "You don't understand. Her consciousness needs a vessel. If you release her now, she will have peace," completed Lily, her voice firm despite the tears running down her face. "It's what she always wanted." The glass of the chamber began to crack, golden lines spreading like spiderwebs. The blue liquid leaked through the fissures, but instead of falling to the floor, it floated in the air like drops of luminous mercury. Nathan, having dispatched the last guard, ran to Lily's side. His body moved by instinct, protecting her as the energy in the laboratory reached critical levels. The machines around them began to spark, their dials spinning uncontrollably. "The temporal fields are collapsing," shouted Dr. Matthews, his face a mask of horror and fascination. "The entire experiment, all the manipulated time, is returning to normal." Sister Constance, who until then had been observing everything in silence, finally spoke. Her voice, normally controlled, trembled with emotion. "It is God's will manifesting itself. Some things were not meant to be controlled by men." The glass finally gave way completely, exploding into thousands of fragments that floated in the air like diamonds. Rebecca's body, freed from its tubes and electrodes, hovered for a moment suspended in a cloud of golden light. That's when it happened. Her eyes opened one last time, but there was no pain or fear in them, only peace. Her lips moved in a gentle smile, and her voice, clear as spring water, echoed not through the air but directly in the minds of all present. "My Lily, my daughter, you are stronger than I ever dreamed of being. The love you built, the life you created are yours by right, not an extension of my dreams, but your own reality." Her eyes found Nathan's, and there was forgiveness in them. "My love, you finally found what you were looking for. Not in memories of the past, but in promises of the future." Rebecca's body began to glow with an almost unbearable intensity. Lily felt something inside her detach, not with pain, but with the softness of a petal falling in autumn. It was as if a door long ajar finally closed, leaving her complete in her own existence. "No," Dr. Matthews advanced, trying to reach the chamber, but it was too late. With a final smile, Rebecca's body dissolved into pure light, each particle of her existence transforming into golden points that floated like fireflies before disappearing into the air. The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the distant sound of the convent bells. Lily staggered, her legs giving way under the weight of the moment. Nathan caught her in his arms, and when their gazes met, they both saw something new in each other. A love that was not echo or shadow, but a living, pulsing force, born of choice and truth. "It's over," she whispered, burying her face in his chest. "It's finally over." But Dr. Matthews, fallen to his knees among the debris of his experiment, laughed, a hysterical laugh that echoed off the walls of the laboratory. "Over?" He raised his face, and his eyes shone with a maniacal light. "Oh no, my dear, this was just the beginning." Around them, the laboratory lights began to flicker violently, and an impossible wind blew in the depths of the earth. Something was changing, not just in the laboratory, but in the very structure of reality around them. And at the center of it all, Nathan and Lily clung to each other, facing together whatever storm was coming. Dr. Matthews's laughter echoed off the walls of the laboratory as he rose, his movements erratic, like those of a puppet with tangled strings. The machines around continued to spark, creating a chaotic spectacle of light and shadow. "You really believed it would be so simple?" His voice had a different tone now, as if several people were speaking at once. "That it would be enough to free one soul to undo 13 years of temporal manipulation?" Nathan pulled Lily closer to himself, his eyes scanning the environment for an escape route, but all paths seemed blocked by short-circuiting equipment and fallen guardians. "What's happening?" whispered Lily, her body trembling not from fear, but from a strange energy that seemed to emanate from the air itself. Sister Constance, who was observing everything with wide eyes, was the one who answered, "The fabric of time is unraveling. All the manipulations, all the folds we created, are returning to their natural state." "Exactly." Matthews spun on his own axis, arms open like an insane maestro. "And do you know what happens when you pull a loose thread in a fabric? The entire pattern begins to unravel." As if to confirm his words, the air around them began to ripple, like heat rising from asphalt on a summer day. Images began to form on the walls, scenes from the past, fragments of memory that belonged not only to Rebecca or Lily, but to all who had ever been part of the convent's experiments. "My God," murmured Sister Constance, her face as pale as wax. How many others were there?" "Dozens," Matthews spun again, his eyes reflecting the flashing lights like broken mirrors. "All those who wanted a second chance, who wanted to transcend the limits of time. I gave them what they wanted. And now," his smile widened impossibly, "now they're all coming back." The walls of the laboratory began to pulse with a light of their own, and shadows began to form in the penumbra. Spectral figures that seemed half solid, half dream. They were people of all ages, all eras, their eyes shining with the same supernatural blue as the liquid in the chamber. "Nathan," Lily squeezed his hand tightly, "we need to get out of here now." But before they could move, Matthews raised his hands, and a wave of bluish energy swept through the laboratory. The spectral figures solidified a bit more, and their whispers began to fill the air like a distorted chorus. "Nobody is going anywhere," he declared. "You don't understand. This is the moment I've been waiting for all these years. The final convergence, when past and present merge, when all barriers between temporal dimensions finally fall." Lily took a step forward, still holding Nathan's hand. Her face was pale, but her green eyes shone with a fierce determination. "You're wrong, Doctor. Time was not meant to be manipulated this way. Each life, each moment, has its own natural course." "Natural?" Matthews spat the word as if it were poison. "Nature is cruel, my dear. Nature robs us of those we love, condemns us to mortality, to decay. I found a way to transcend all that." The spectral figures were getting closer and closer, their outlines becoming sharper with each second. Nathan could see familiar faces, among them, people who had disappeared over the years, given up for dead or lost. "Lily," he whispered in her ear, "the key. Do you still have it?" She nodded imperceptibly, the ancient metal burning in her palm like a live coal. Somehow she knew what needed to be done, a certainty that came not from Rebecca's memories, but from her own being. "You can't stop this," shouted Matthews, as if reading her thoughts. "The process has already begun. In a matter of minutes, the barrier between dimensions will be completely broken." "No," replied Lily, her voice carrying a power that made the lights flicker. "I won't stop this. I will complete it." With a fluid movement, she raised the key. The ancient metal began to glow again, but this time with a different light. Not golden like before, but silver like moonlight. "What are you doing?" Matthew's voice trembled for the first time. "What Rebecca really planned," she replied. "The key wasn't just to free her. It was to free all of them, to let them follow their natural path." The spectral figures stopped their advance, as if recognizing something in the light emanating from the key. Their faces, before distorted by pain and confusion, began to show signs of peace. "No." Matthews advanced, but Nathan positioned himself between him and Lily. "Enough," he declared, his voice cutting through the air like steel. "It's over, Matthews. Let them go." The silver light of the key intensified, filling the entire laboratory. The spectral figures began to dissolve, not in terror or agony, but with expressions of relief and gratitude. It was like watching snow melting in the sun, gentle, natural, inevitable. "My work." Matthews fell to his knees, tears running down his aged face. "My whole life." Sister Constance approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes," she said softly, "our greatest work is learning to let go. The laboratory was changing around them. The machines, deprived of the supernatural energy that fed them, began to shut down one by one. The walls stopped pulsing, and the air became just air again. Lily turned to Nathan, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Is it really over now?" He pulled her into his arms, his lips finding hers in a kiss that savored the promise of the future. "No," he murmured against her mouth. "It's just beginning. Our story, just ours, is just beginning." Outside, the convent bells began to ring again, announcing the dawn of a new day. And in the depths of the underground laboratory, among the debris of an impossible dream, a new love blossomed, not built on memories or experiments, but on the simple and powerful truth of two hearts that chose each other. The weeks following, the events at the convent brought a new reality for Nathan and Lily. Magnolia Manor, once a monument to the past and its ghosts, began to breathe with new life. The curtains were opened, letting sunlight bathe rooms that had long been immersed in shadows. On a particularly clear morning, Lily found Nathan in the garden of black roses. He was kneeling among the flower beds, his aristocratic hands dirty, with soil as he planted new buds alongside Rebecca's old flowers. "White roses?" she asked, approaching with soft steps. "I thought it was time to bring some light to this garden," he replied, raising his eyes to admire her. The morning sun created a golden halo around her black hair, and for the first time he saw her completely as herself. Not a shadow of Rebecca, but a unique and extraordinary woman. Lily knelt beside him, her fingers gently touching the petals of a black rose. "They're still beautiful," she murmured, "but now they're just flowers, not symbols." Nathan put down the gardening trowel and took her hands in his. "How are you since that night?" She smiled, a smile that was entirely her own. "Different. It's as if a weight has been lifted from my shoulders. Rebecca's memories are still here," she touched her own chest, "but now they're just that, memories, not definitions of what I am." "And what are you, Lily?" he asked, his voice hoarse with contained emotion. She leaned forward, her lips brushing his in a soft kiss before answering, "I am a woman who chose her own destiny, who learned to love not by inheritance or imposition, but by her own choice." The kiss that followed was deep, passionate, charged with promises. Nathan's hands, still dirty with soil, left marks on her skin as he pulled her closer. But neither of them cared. There was something primitive and true in that contact, something that spoke of new beginnings and deep roots. "Marry me," he whispered against her lips. Lily moved away just enough to look into his eyes, searching for and finding the certainty she needed to see. "Are you sure after everything?" "I've never been so sure of anything in my life," he interrupted, holding her face between his hands. "What I feel for you, Lily, is both new and ancient at the same time. It's a love that grew from the ashes of a past that no longer defines us. It's ours, just ours." Tears shone in her eyes, but they were tears of joy. "Yes," she answered simply, and in that single word was contained all the promise of a future they would build together. The sound of footsteps on the gravel made them both turn. Mrs. Garcia was approaching, carrying a tray with breakfast. Her wrinkled face opened in a smile at the scene before her. "Finally," said the housekeeper, placing the tray on a nearby garden bench. "The mansion needed a happy marriage." Nathan and Lily exchanged surprised looks. "How did you—" "Ah, my dear," Garcia laughed softly. "When you serve a family for as long as I have, you learn to read the signs, and you too—" She made an encompassing gesture with her hands. "You shine like the sun after a long night," as they shared breakfast in the garden, between black and white roses. They talked about the future, about transforming the North Wing into a new library, about renovating the greenhouse to receive more light, about bringing music and life back to the silent halls. "And the convent?" Lily finally asked, the question that had hung between them for weeks. "Sister Constance has taken over the administration," replied Nathan. "Dr. Matthews is recovering under medical supervision. The experiments were completely terminated, and the underground laboratory was sealed. And the others? The other people who were part of the experiments? Some bodies were found, preserved like Rebecca's. They were given proper burials with dignity. Others— He paused, choosing his words. Others simply followed their natural path, as you said that night, to wherever souls are supposed to go when they are finally released. Lily nodded, a weight leaving her shoulders. And us? Where do we go now? Nathan smiled, pulling her closer. Wherever we want. The future is ours to build, without ghosts, without experiments, without predetermined destinies. Just the two of us, choosing each step of the way. The sun rose in the sky, bathing the garden in golden light. The black and white roses danced gently in the morning breeze, their petals touching like in a delicate waltz. In the mansion, Mrs. Garcia was already making plans for the wedding, muttering to herself about flowers and music. And there, among the scent of roses and promises of love, Nathan and Lily sealed their commitment with another kiss. Not a kiss of conclusion, but of beginning. Because some stories don't end when the mysteries are solved or when the ghosts are freed. Some stories, the most beautiful ones, only begin when two people choose to write their own chapters together. The preparations for the wedding brought a new energy to Magnolia Manor. During the months that followed, each room was renovated. Each shadow of the past gently brushed away to make room for a brighter future. But not everything was flowers and promises. There were still questions that needed to be resolved, truths that needed to be faced. On a particularly warm summer night, while organizing old photographs and documents in the office, Lily found something that made her heart stop for a moment. It was an old folder yellowed by time with the letterhead of St. Mary's Hospital. "Nathan," she called, her voice trembling slightly, "I think you need to see this." He approached, setting aside the papers he was organizing. The document in her hands was a medical report dated 13 years ago, the original diagnosis of Rebecca's brain tumor. "Dr. Matthews didn't lie about this," murmured Lily, her eyes scanning the pages. "She really was dying. But there's more." She turned the page, revealing a series of handwritten notes. She wasn't the first to seek out the convent. There were others before her, desperate people seeking a second chance. Nathan sat heavily in the leather armchair, pulling Lily onto his lap. The warmth of her body was a familiar comfort now, an anchor amid the revelations that continued to emerge. "What else does it say?" he asked, his fingers tracing soft patterns on her arm. "These are records of other experiments," she continued, her voice gaining strength as she read. But Rebecca was different. She didn't just want to survive, she wanted to create something new. When she discovered the pregnancy, she saw an opportunity that no one had considered before. A transfer not just of consciousness, but of life, completed Nathan, beginning to understand. A chance to give her daughter not just genes, but memories, experiences. "Love," whispered Lily, turning to face him. "She wanted to give me her love for you, but not as an imposition, as a choice. That's why the experiment was different. That's why I grew up with her memories, but also with my own identity." Nathan took her face between his hands, his eyes searching hers with intensity. "And you chose to love me anyway, even knowing the whole story, all the pain." "I chose you every day," she replied, leaning in to kiss him softly. "Each of her memories showed me who you were, but it was knowing who you are now that made me love you." The kiss that followed was deep, charged with emotion and desire. His hands slid down her back, pulling her closer, while she adjusted herself on his lap, her legs wrapping around his waist. "Here," he murmured against her lips, his hands already finding the hem of her dress. "Here," she confirmed, her fingers working on the buttons of his shirt. "Now. Always." The moonlight that entered through the tall windows created dancing shadows on their skin as they undressed each other, with an urgency that went beyond physical desire. It was a need for connection, for confirmation that what they had was real, was theirs. Nathan's hands explored her body with reverence and familiarity, each touch provoking sighs and low moans. Lily arched against him, her body responding as if it had been made for his touch, and in a way it had been. "You're so beautiful," he murmured, his lips tracing a path of kisses down her neck, descending to her chest. "So perfect." She threw her head back, offering more of herself to his exploration. Her fingers buried themselves in his hair when his mouth found her breast, provoking sensations that made her tremble. There was no hurry in their movements, just a sensual dance of discovery and pleasure. When he finally entered her, it was with a gentleness that brought tears to her eyes, not of pain but of pure emotion. "I love you," she whispered, her hips moving in sync with his. "Not as a memory, not as an echo. I love you as myself, completely." "I love you too," he replied, his voice hoarse with desire and emotion. "Every part of you, every choice that brought us here." The pleasure grew between them like a wave, each movement bringing them closer to ecstasy. When the climax finally hit them, it was with an intensity that left them trembling in each other's arms, their hearts beating to the same frantic rhythm. Afterward, still intertwined in the armchair, Lily found one more page in the medical report. It was a letter from Rebecca, written the night before the final experiment. "My dear daughter, when you read this, I hope you have already found your own path. I gave you my memories not as chains, but as wings, so you could know love in its purest form and then choose your own destiny. Forgive me for any weight this may have placed on your shoulders, and know that my last wish is for you to be happy, completely, truly happy." Nathan held her tighter as he saw the silent tears running down her face. "She got what she wanted," he said softly. "Are you happy?" Lily smiled through the tears, a smile that lit up her entire face. "More than I ever thought possible. And you?" "More each day," he replied, kissing her again. "More each day." Outside, the summer night continued its silent dance, and on the office desk, among old documents and new revelations, the wedding invitations waited to be sent. The future opened before them like a blank book, ready to be filled with their own story, a story of love that transcended time, memory, and destiny itself. The wedding day dawned with a peculiar clarity, as if the sky itself had been washed during the night. Magnolia Manor, with its Gothic towers and renewed gardens, seemed to gleam under the autumn sun. The black and white roses intertwined in elaborate arrangements that decorated every corner of the property, symbolizing the union between past and present, between shadow and light. Lily was in Rebecca's old room, now transformed into an elegant closet, while Mrs. Garcia made the final adjustments to her wedding dress. The dress was a work of art in itself, antique French lace combined with modern silk, traditional and contemporary fused in perfect harmony. "You look beautiful, child," said the housekeeper, her eyes shining with contained tears. "Like an angel." But before Lily could respond, an unexpected breeze blew through the closed window, bringing with it the unmistakable scent of jasmine. For a moment, just a brief moment, she saw Rebecca's reflection in the mirror beside her, not as a ghost or a haunting, but as a loving and protective presence. "She's here," whispered Lily, a soft smile on her lips. "Not as a memory, but as a blessing." Mrs. Garcia, who had served the family long enough to believe in miracles, just nodded. Some souls never really leave us. They just learn to love in a different way. Downstairs, Nathan waited at the improvised altar set up in the winter garden. The place had been completely restored. The clean, stained glass windows let in light, in kaleidoscopic patterns, and the vines had been tamed to create a natural canopy of flowers and foliage. The guests were few, just the most intimate. Among them, surprisingly, was Sister Constance. The nun had changed since the events at the convent. Her once austere face now carried a genuine serenity. When the music began, not the traditional wedding march, but Claire de Lune played on a grand piano, all those present turned to the entrance. Lily appeared like a vision, her dress capturing the light from the stained glass windows and transforming it into something magical. Nathan felt his heart stop for a moment. She was absolutely stunning, but it wasn't just her physical beauty that took his breath away. It was the strength that emanated from her, the certainty in her steps, the love that shone in her green eyes. When she finally reached the altar, their hands found each other naturally, like pieces of a puzzle, fitting together. The celebrant, an elderly priest who had known the family's secrets for generations, began the ceremony with words about love, destiny, and choices. "True love," he said, his grave voice echoing through the winter garden, "is not just a feeling. It is a choice we make every day. It is waking up in the morning and deciding once again that this is the person with whom we want to share our journey." Lily and Nathan exchanged meaningful glances. They, more than anyone, understood the weight and beauty of that choice. "The vows you exchange today," continued the priest, "are more than promises. They are declarations of a truth you already live, a truth that transcends time, memory, and destiny itself." Nathan was the first to speak, his voice firm despite the emotion that made his eyes shine. "Lily, you came into my life as a mystery and revealed yourself as a miracle. Each day by your side is a discovery, an adventure, a confirmation that true love is not something we find. It is something we build, choice after choice, moment after moment. I promise to spend the rest of my life choosing you, loving you, growing by your side." Silent tears ran down Lily's face when it was her turn. "Nathan, I was born of a love so great that it transcended death itself. But the love I feel for you is mine, a conscious choice, a daily decision, a certainty that grows with each new dawn. I promise to honor that choice every day. I promise to love you with all the strength of who I am, not as an echo of the past, but as a promise of the future." The exchange of rings was an almost sacred moment. The rings, made of intertwined white and black gold, symbolized the perfect union between light and shadow, between memory and hope. When the priest declared them husband and wife, the kiss that sealed their union was more than a ritual gesture. It was a promise, a celebration, a new beginning. The guests applauded, but for Nathan and Lily, the world had reduced to that moment, that touch, that certainty. The reception that followed was a celebration of life and love. The mansion, once a monument to the past, pulsed with music, laughter, and promises of the future. In the ballroom, under the crystal chandeliers that had been silent witnesses to so many stories, the newlyweds danced as if they were alone in the world. "Happy?" asked Nathan, his lips brushing her ear as they spun to the sound of a waltz. "More than I ever dreamed possible," she replied, nestling closer in his arms. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" "The beginning of our story," he confirmed. "A story we'll write together, page by page, day by day." And as they danced, as the night advanced and the stars shone over Magnolia Manor, they both knew they had found something rare and precious, a love that was not inheritance or imposition, but conscious and joyful choice. Her love that did not deny the past, but built upon it an entirely new future. The black and white roses would continue to bloom in the gardens, reminding everyone that life, like love, is made of contrasts and harmonies. And in the mansion that once housed so many secrets, a new story was beginning to be written, a story of love, of courage, and of choices that transcend time itself. A year passed since the wedding, and Magnolia Manor flourished along with the love of its inhabitants. The property, once shrouded in mystery and melancholy, now overflowed with life. The gardens had been completely renovated, with Rebecca's black roses coexisting harmoniously with an explosion of other colorful flowers that Lily had planted. On a particular spring afternoon, Nathan found his wife in the library, organizing a new section of books. She was different. Her face had a special glow, and her hands occasionally rested protectively on her belly. "When were you planning to tell me?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe, a soft smile on his lips. Lily turned, surprised, but her face soon opened into a radiant smile. "How did you know?" "Mrs. Garcia," he replied, approaching to wrap her in his arms. "Apparently she recognizes the signs, since she helped raise my mother." Her laughter filled the library like music. "I was going to tell you tonight, actually. I wanted to be sure first." Her voice faltered a little. "I wanted to be sure it was real, that it was normal." Nathan immediately understood her concern. After all they had discovered about her own origin, it was natural for Lily to fear that her pregnancy might carry some supernatural echo of the convent's experiments. "It's real," he assured her, his hands covering hers over her still flat belly. "It's ours. Just ours." Tears of joy shone in her eyes. "I did every possible test. It's a completely normal pregnancy. Our little—" She paused, biting her lip with a mischievous smile. "Our little ones—" "Little ones?" Nathan's eyes widened. "You mean twins," she confirmed, laughing at the astonished expression on his face. "Two perfectly healthy and completely normal girls." He lifted her in his arms, spinning her in the air as he laughed with pure joy. When he finally set her down, his eyes were wet with emotion. "You continue to surprise me, you know. Every day, every moment." "And I intend to keep surprising you for a long time to come," she replied, pulling him into a deep and passionate kiss. The kiss soon transformed into something more intense, more urgent. His hands slid over her body with familiarity and reverence, finding new sensitive points that pregnancy had awakened. "Here," he murmured against her lips, remembering so many other times they had made love in this same library. "Here," she confirmed, her fingers already working on the buttons of his shirt. "Now." They made love among the ancient bookshelves, their bodies moving in a dance they had perfected over the past year. Each touch, each kiss was a celebration, not just of their love, but of the new life growing inside her. Afterward, still intertwined on the leather sofa, Lily traced lazy patterns on Nathan's bare chest as they talked about the future. "Have you thought about names?" he asked, his fingers playing with a lock of her hair. "I have some ideas," she replied, raising her face to look at him, "but I want us to choose together, something that represents a new beginning, not a tribute to the past." Nathan nodded, understanding perfectly. Something entirely theirs, entirely new. A sudden movement caught the attention of both. One of the oldest books in the library had fallen from its shelf, opening to a specific page. When Lily picked it up, her eyes widened at the content. It was an ancient book of name meanings, and the open page showed two names side by side, Dawn and Claire, light of morning and bright light. "Do you think—" she began, but didn't need to complete the sentence. They both felt, not as a ghostly presence, but as a soft, loving blessing. Rebecca, somehow, somewhere, was smiling at them. "They're perfect," said Nathan, kissing her forehead tenderly. "Dawn and Claire Blackwood." Lily closed her eyes, feeling the first gentle movements in her womb, so subtle they could have been just her imagination. "Our little lights," she murmured, "born not of experiments or temporal manipulation, but of pure love and conscious choice." The afternoon sun came through the high windows of the library, creating golden patterns on the ancient wooden floor. On the nearby table, the plans for the twins' room waited to be finalized, a project that blended modern elements with vintage touches, just like all the renovation they had done in the mansion. "You know what's funny?" said Lily after a moment of contemplative silence. "For so long I thought my story was about finding my origin, about understanding who I was in relation to the past. But actually, it was about creating your own future," completed Nathan, pulling her closer. "About choosing your own path. About choosing you," she added, kissing him softly. "About choosing our story." Outside in the garden, the black and colorful roses danced in the afternoon breeze, their petals mixing in a perfect harmony of shadow and light. And inside the mansion that once housed so many mysteries, a new chapter was beginning to be written. No longer a story of supernatural experiments or lost loves, but a story of renewal, of choices, and of a love that continued to grow and surprise each day. Dawn and Claire Blackwood would be born into a home full of love, their lives a testimony that the true miracle is not in manipulating time or cheating death, but in choosing to love, choosing to live, choosing to create something entirely new from the lessons of the past. And so, Magnolia Manor would continue its transformation, no longer a monument to loss and mystery, but a vibrant home where the past was honored, the present was celebrated, and the future was awaited with joy and hope. Her story of love that, like the roses in the garden, would continue to bloom in all seasons, in all lives, in all times. The last weeks of the pregnancy brought a new atmosphere to Magnolia Manor. The old north wing, once sealed and charged with dark memories, had been completely transformed into the twins' room. The walls, once dark, now displayed a delicate gradient that went from soft pink to lavender, and the ceiling had been painted with a starry sky that glowed softly in the dark. Nathan found himself increasingly protective, dividing his time between the vineyard business and caring for Lily, who, despite her advanced pregnancy, maintained a surprising energy. She spent hours in the garden, talking to her flowers, and occasionally to Rebecca, not as a ghost or a supernatural presence, but as a mother talking to a grandmother who would never know her granddaughters. It was on one of these afternoons in the garden that Lily felt the first contractions. The autumn sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with shades of pink and gold that made the black roses look like they were made of dark velvet. "Nathan," she called, her voice calm but firm. "It's time." He was at her side in seconds, his eyes revealing a mixture of anxiety and love so deep it made her heart ache. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely," she replied, smiling despite the growing pain. "Your daughters chose twilight to come into the world. Appropriate, don't you think?" VT. Delivery was performed in the mansion itself, as Lily had insisted. The doctor, Dr. Reed, was a renowned obstetrician who had been carefully chosen not only for his experience, but for his open mind. He knew Lily's peculiar history and had monitored the pregnancy with special attention. The hours that followed were a dance between pain and expectation, between past and future. Mrs. Garcia organized everything with maternal efficiency, while Nathan remained by Lily's side, offering silent support and unconditional love. At exactly midnight, when the full moon was at the height of its brightness, Dawn was born, a small creature with dark hair and eyes that, when briefly opened, revealed a shade of green that made Nathan catch his breath. 7 minutes later, Claire arrived in the world, so similar to her sister and yet unique, with a crescent-shaped birthmark at the base of her neck. "They're perfect," whispered Lily, exhausted but radiant, as she held her daughters for the first time. Completely, absolutely perfect. Nathan, sitting on the edge of the bed, couldn't contain the tears that ran freely down his face. "Like you," he replied, leaning in to kiss first her forehead, then that of each of the girls. It was at that moment that something extraordinary happened. Not a supernatural or mystical event, but one of those small miracles that life sometimes presents us with. A ray of moonlight passed through the window of the room at an impossible angle, creating a nocturnal rainbow that briefly danced over the faces of the twins. "A blessing," murmured Mrs. Garcia, who was observing the scene from the door. "From all the kinds of light that exist in the world." The days that followed were a constant discovery. Dawn and Claire, although identical twins, soon began to show distinct personalities. Dawn was curious and restless, her small green eyes always attentive to everything around her. Claire was more contemplative, with a serene smile that resembled old photographs of Rebecca. A week after the birth, Nathan found Lily in the library, nursing the girls while watching the sunrise through the tall windows. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, sitting beside her on the leather sofa that held so many memories of their love. "Circles," she replied, her gaze alternating between her daughters and the horizon that was beginning to brighten. "About how life has its own way of completing circles, of transforming endings into beginnings." Nathan put his arm around her shoulders, gently pulling her closer. "Are you thinking about Rebecca?" "Yes and no," she said, adjusting Claire, who had fallen asleep at her breast. "I'm thinking about how her love for you created something so much bigger than all of us, not just me, but now these two perfectly new and unique lives. And completely normal," he added with a smile, knowing that this had been a concern Lily had carried throughout the pregnancy. "Yes," she laughed softly. "No temporal experiments or inherited memories, just two girls who will have the chance to write their own stories." Dawn chose that moment to open her green eyes, so similar to her mother's, and let out a small sound that could have been a sigh or a smile. "Although," continued Lily, tracing her daughter's delicate face with a finger, I think they will always have a special connection with this place, with this story. Not as a weight or an obligation, but as a legacy of love that transcends time. A legacy that you helped transform, said Nathan, kissing her temple tenderly. From a story of loss and experiments into one of love and renewal. The sun had fully risen now, bathing the library in golden light. In the garden, the black and colorful roses shone with morning dew, their petals opening to a new day. "You know what's funny?" murmured Lily, as the twins slept peacefully in her arms. "For so long I thought my story was about discovering who I was in relation to the past. But now I realize it was about discovering who I could become. And with you, with our daughters," and she smiled, a smile that lit up her entire face, "I discovered that the possibilities are infinite." Nathan kissed her then, a soft and deep kiss that carried all the love they felt for each other. And there in the library of Magnolia Manor, surrounded by old books and new light, a family that had been born from the most unlikely of encounters celebrated not just the love that united them, but all the stories yet to come. Because some stories don't end, they just transform like the seasons, like time, like love itself. And in Magnolia Manor, where ghosts and secrets once dwelled, now echoed baby laughter and promises of the future, proving that the greatest miracle of all is not in trying to control time, but in allowing it to transform us, renew us, and surprise us with new beginnings. Among the black roses, a single flower had been born completely white, but with the edges of the petals in a dark tone that seemed to pulse with life of its own. It was a botanical anomaly that instantly reminded Nathan of Dr. Matthew's words about how some things in the world transcended scientific understanding. "Is it magic, Daddy?" asked Claire, her soft voice carrying that innocence that only children possess. Before he could answer, Lily appeared in the garden. The years had only accentuated her beauty, adding a serene maturity to her gaze. She paused at the sight of the unique rose, and a knowing smile touched her lips. Nathan observed his family with his heart overflowing with love. The twins were a daily miracle, not of the supernatural kind that once defined their lives, but of the common and extraordinary kind that happens when true love takes root and flourishes. Dawn, always the most curious, gently touched the peculiar rose. Would Grandma Rebecca have liked it? The question made Lily and Nathan exchange a meaningful look. They had never hidden the extraordinary story of their family from the girls, adapting it in a way that children could understand. A story of love that transcended time, of a grandmother who loved so deeply that her love created new paths of life. "Your grandmother Rebecca," said Lily, pulling both girls onto her lap, "loved all things that were unique and special, like this rose, like you two." Nathan joined them on the garden floor, his arms enveloping his family. "And do you know what else she loved?" he asked, his voice soft. "Stories, stories of love, of courage, of transformation." "Like yours and Mom's?" asked Claire, her eyes shining with interest. "Exactly like ours," confirmed Lily, exchanging a passionate look with Nathan. "A story that began with mystery and ended with the greatest love of all." The girls nestled closer between their parents, and for a moment, the entire family was silent, just appreciating each other's presence. The afternoon sun created golden patterns through the garden foliage, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of the roses, black, colorful, and that single special one, half white, half dark. "You know what else your grandmother Rebecca taught us?" continued Lily, her voice carrying a deep emotion. "That true love isn't something that happens to us. It's something we choose to create every day, with each small gesture, each shared moment." Nathan extended his hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. "And that sometimes," he added, "the greatest miracles aren't those that defy the laws of nature, but those that happen naturally when we open our hearts to new possibilities." Dawn and Claire absorbed every word with the solemn attention that only children can have. They were too young to fully understand the complexity of their parents' story, of the love that had defied time itself to exist. But they could feel, with that pure intuition of childhood, that they were part of something special, something larger than themselves. "Can I tell a story now?" asked Dawn, her green eyes shining with creativity. "Of course, my love," replied Lily, adjusting herself to listen. "Once upon a time," began Dawn, her childish voice full of conviction, "there was a magical mansion where roses could be any color and where love was so strong it could make miracles happen." As her daughter's voice flowed, telling her own innocent version of the story they had lived, Nathan and Lily exchanged another look, a look that contained all the love, all the gratitude, and all the certainty that they had made the right choices. Magnolia Manor would continue to guard its secrets, but now they were secrets of joy, of love, and of infinite possibilities. The roses in the garden would continue to bloom, some black as night, others as colorful as the rainbow, and that single special one, half light, half dark, reminding everyone that the greatest love stories are those that embrace both light and shadow. And so, amidst children's laughter and the scent of roses, amidst memories of the past and promises of the future, the story of Nathan and Lily continued to be written, no longer as a tale of mystery and the supernatural, but as a saga of love that proved, day after day, that true miracles happen when we choose to love, when we choose to trust, when we choose to fully live each moment that is given to us. Because in the end, it wasn't about temporal experiments or divided souls. It was about hearts that chose to beat in the same rhythm, about lives that intertwined by choice and not by destiny, about a love that continued to grow and transform, like the roses in the garden of Magnolia Manor, eternal in its beauty, infinite in its possibilities.